Greetings. Good Wednesday morning, December 8th, 2021, the day after the memorial of Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, the day that shall live in infamy. I've been doing these videos for a little over a year, and it took me the better part of a year to get the courage to finally put a video on the internet, which didn't quite have the effect I thought it might. Not necessarily the lack of popularity, but the lack of popularity. I was more worried about consequence than I was becoming some sort of influencer or icon. That I could care less about. If my circle is small, that's fine. But if for some reason I'm stimulating conversation, then fantastic. If I'm trying to bring if I'm guilty of bringing more people together, then even better. In the course of that year, I've said a lot of different things. I've posed a lot of different questions. I've posted, several of my opinions. I even had a buddy of mine jump on Skype or is it Skype or is it Zoom? That's it, Zoom. And we had discussions. All of that being said, I've been, it's like, that searching for meaning of life. I've been searching for logic and reason and potential solutions. And, as I continue to look, right, we're almost in the year 2022. And I keep repeating the same thing over and over again because words, to a certain degree, should have gravitas. They should have weight. They should have value and meaning. And I keep repeating the same thing. We're in the third decade of the 21st century. Most people in the past would have believed that we were going to be way more advanced and that we would be a bit more utopian. Some believed we would be in dire straits, using up all the resources, etc. I don't know that we're anywhere in between the two. I don't know that we're any closer to a utopia. I don't know that we're in complete and total dire straits. I think we've been progressing at the rate we should. If nothing else, I think we have certain technologies that nobody would have thought of, and yet we don't have technology that everybody thought we would. That being said, what I find interesting is, in spite of all that, I look at our social interaction, our socio status, if you will, how we conduct our lives and how we treat each other and how we've started to create these camps, if you will, these tribal allegiances. And I sincerely envy those who are completely tuned out and have no idea what's going on. I severely envy my children who, in spite of all of my concerns and worries, they're not paying attention. And apparently, neither is anybody else in their school. So the black kids, the brown kids, the red kids, the yellow kids, even the white kids, nobody's paying attention to what I'm paying attention to as an adult. And it's a tremendous amount of comfort to know that the things that I get concerned about for my kids are not really an issue. So that much is fair. In my last video, one of the highlights was talking about the whole vaccine and abortion thing, which was, trying to see if people can actually see the hypocrisy. And I know among, other than hypocrisy, I've talked about media bias on numerous occasions. And what I find interesting is a lot of these agencies have been caught. All right, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, just to name a few, a lot of them have been caught red-handed. And I almost admire their tenacity because it's like, yep, 100%. This is what we believe in, and we're going to do everything we can to support our beliefs, and we're going to twist and distort and lie and do everything in our power to support our beliefs. I almost admire the fact that they doubled down. And I'm equally baffled and yet in utter admiration at the fact that there are people that are like, hell yeah, they're lying. And we like the lie. We love the lie. We crave that. We need the lie. We need to be lied to in order to support our belief system. And if you know me, you know that I'm not a big fan of church. I don't despise people who go to church. I don't hate people who have faith. I will not like you if you try to sell me. I will despise you if you try to convert me. We will become less than friends quicker than a hiccup. All right. So with that being said, I put it in the same ballpark as certain things about religion that I have a real hard time with. I use a similar comparison to the people that are on the left. I don't want to call them liberals or progressives because I think there are positive values to real liberals and real progressives. But the people that believe the lie, crave the lie, they're addicted to the lie, that they're addicted to excess. I had a pretty long conversation with my daughter the other night. And, I was talking about how, as far as I go, as I post these videos, but I don't wave flags. I don't have hats. I don't have many shirts. And I've always had this weird resistance to doing that. And it finally hit me that I had this weird subconscious behavior that I'm actually rather proud of for a change. And that is, I hate things being shoved in my face. Did I get the vaccine? Yes. I got it in order to save my job. Do I think it's right? No. I think it's horrific. But I couldn't sacrifice my family's well-being because I didn't want to get a shot. After 20 years in the military, trust me, my DNA's on file. Trust me, I've been pumped full of God knows what. What's 2 more shots? Exactly. Not to mention, these are the vaccines that Trump pushed through. So if you're one of those anti-Biden, pro-Trumpers, well, technically these are the Trump vaccines Biden's trying to make you take. You don't like the messenger? I get that, but I digress. Back on topic. I don't like things being shoved in my face, whether it's your sexual preference, whether it's your religion, whether it's your politics. And I try to be very mindful of whether I'm being a hypocrite. Am I shoving my preference in your face? Am I shoving my opinions in your face, my politics, whatever? I know the video is a completely different thing, but in all fairness, like 2, 3, or 4 of you watch it max. So I don't really have to worry about it there. But that's why I don't have, like political flags, or I don't, wear political shirts or whatnot. It's not that I don't find them funny or that I don't find any value in them. It's just I don't want to be a hypocrite. If I'm over here saying I don't like this, I don't want this, don't do that, then equally and opposite, I should do the same. And I think that's a very simple, common sense approach to humanity and just social interaction. As I've been making these videos for over a year, and I've posed questions, some of which are repetitive, and part of my thought process is I try to look for rationale. I try to look for rhyme and reason, even if there may not be any. I'm one of those people where, good, bad, or indifferent, I need things to make sense. I need 1 + 1 = 2. All right, 1 + 1 + X equals something else. Well, I'm not a big fan of solving for X. All right, math was not my strong suit. I've posted theories on everything from whether or not the changing of the tide had to do with the election of Barack Obama. Was I a fan of him? No. Do I want to commit and attribute motive to his presidency without facts to back it up? No. Do I think as a president he had some opportunities to make some better decisions, especially when it came to sociopolitical issues that could have changed the direction of things we're dealing with today? Absolutely. Do I think certain groups of people, political entities, etc., even ideologies, piggybacked off of his election being that he changed the complexion of the White House? Absolutely. In which case, whether he would claim responsibility for anything or whether he would accept responsibility for anything other than what he actually did, I think to some degree Barack Obama was not a scapegoat, but perhaps the motivation certain people needed to push forth some extreme ideas and extreme concepts. Can I say it's his fault directly? No, I think that would be disingenuous. But can I say others may have used him as a figurehead, as the motivation they needed to get up off their ass and start pushing forth some pretty extreme ideologies? Of course. I mean, depending on whether or not you tap into anything of any kind whatsoever, it's hard to ignore some excessively left-minded policies where career criminals are being treated like martyrs and they're being treated with kid gloves, and then they go out and they continue to commit crimes. If not, they step up their game because it's kind of like, well, I received this minimal slap on the wrist for that, which is normally pretty bad. How far can I push things? You know, look no further than the guy who ran over people at a Christmas parade. All right, I don't know if it was a predominantly white parade, if it was coincidentally a predominantly white parade, but he was a black gentleman who was severely into BLM and severely anti-white, which is racism. All right, everybody likes to think racism is solely for white people, but no, racism is for anybody and everybody. If you despise other people based on their immutable qualities, such as their skin color, religion, whatever, that makes you a racist. It is not singular only to people who are white, right? Because if you really want to break it down into race, well, there's just a human race, and specifically what you're referring to is ethnicity. So you're ethnocentric. You're discriminating against ethnicities, all right? Or if you want to go full retard, you could say, well, according to anthropologists, there was only 3 types of humanoid beings: Negroid, Caucasoid, Mongoloid. I think there should be more, because I think somewhere in between, Mongoloid is supposed to be Asian, Negroid is supposed to be African, Caucasoid is supposed to be European. Well, somewhere in between Asia and Europe, you have another group of people, and I don't know if that would be the combination of Caucasoid and Mongoloid, or if that was the blending of Caucasoid, Mongoloid, and Negroid. I have no idea. You can look this up. You can Google it. Anyways, making martyrs out of criminals. I don't get it. I don't understand it. One of the things I picked up on in the military was what we called the reasonable man approach, or the sniff test. If it smells funny, it's funny. If it, if it doesn't pass the reasonable man theory, then it's not reasonable. And I understand what's reasonable to one person may not be reasonable to another. I'm not a card-carrying Republican. I don't have enough interest or foundation in faith, specifically a form of Christianity, where I can register as a Republican. All right? I don't wake up on Sunday and celebrate anybody or anything. So for that reason, I can't be a Republican. Tragically, in our two-party system, I tend to find Republican lawmakers to be more reasonable than I find Democratic lawmakers. I do not find Democratic lawmakers to be reasonable, and I've never found them to be reasonable, with rare exceptions, and I do mean extremely rare exceptions. And I feel like in this current dichotomy of how hard you can oppose each other, I mean, you have people like Jussie Smollett, who arranged for a fake attack for reasons I don't know. I don't know if it was determined that his story on Empire was bound to end eventually, But he created this false attack, and then whether it's because of his skin color or whether it's because of his sexual preference, the leftist media clamored to support him, like, oh yeah, this is 100%. He was attacked by two men that he hired. They rehearsed the attack, and the two men were also black. Black Trump supporters in Chicago at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's no wonder Dave Chappelle made fun of this. But that's what I'm talking about, is this how hard can we push things? And I understand there are some people, maybe like me, who are not very religious or religious at all, and therefore feel a natural opposition to the Republican Party. I understand there's a tremendous amount of people with my skin tone that feel a tremendous amount of guilt for past events and or atrocities. Bear in mind, you're not responsible for any of them. I was born in 1976. Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act in 64 and the Voting Act in 65. All right, that was 12 and 11 years before I was born. Trust me, I had nothing to do with anything. I was 4 years old in 1980. I was 13 in 1989, which made me 14 in 1990. I lived through the 90s. I was a teenager, young adult in the 90s. All right? If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. Living Color, Def Comedy Jam. I remember, the big swell of, proud black, pro-black, black everything. And maybe it's just been a few decades and it's time to circle back again. I don't know. But this whole white guilt thing, white shaming, masculinity shaming, gender shaming as far as men, at what point do people on the left and or Democrats reach their culminating point and kind of say, well, this isn't reasonable, all right? I mean, one of the reasons I can't be a card-carrying Republican is, if I had to agree with everything that they're about, I don't find everything to be reasonable. In which case, at the end of the day, my question is this. I understand if you're not a Republican. I understand if maybe you're anti-Republican. But at what point do you look at your political party and everything and everyone they support, and when do you just stop and say, hang on a second, this isn't reasonable? Like, I would love for people to take a tour of the border and see what the Customs and Border Protection is going through. I would love for people to take a tour of these leftist utopias and see what it really looks like. Are the homeless overwhelming the streets? Is human digestive material, whether in liquid or solid form, riddling the streets? Is trash riddling the streets? Is drug paraphernalia all over the place? Is it extremely uncomfortable for regular everyday people to just get by and do their thing because there's this constant harassment by people who feel like they're just owed because they exist in spite of the sum total of their decisions? So that's my question for the day, is what can we agree on as reasonable? What can we agree on as common decency, common sense? Where can we meet in the middle? When is enough enough? I mean, what is the alternative? I mean, do we need to reach a point in the 21st century where white people have to experience a form of slavery? Because they did. It's not widely talked about. It's not widely exposed, but they did. Do white people need to be put on reservations? Well, it wasn't called reservations, but white people were also congregated into less desirable areas. It happened. It's not widely talked about, but it happened. So, I mean, what is the solution? What is the reasonable man or woman theory moving forward? If you have an opinion, I'd like to know. All right? Because I think that's the only way forward, is if we can have these conversations, whether we agree or disagree. So you guys know the deal. Like it, don't like it, I don't care. Subscribe, don't subscribe, I don't care. I prefer if you leave a comment, whether on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, but otherwise I'm not trying to generate followers or increase my popularity. But I do enjoy the conversations, and I know one buddy of mine responded to me via text. Most of it was agreeing with what I had to say, and I do appreciate it. I also appreciate you watching. Um, but I guess what I'm looking for is somebody who disagrees. Now, hey, look, if you agree and you want to get involved, that's fine. But I'm more interested to hear about people who disagree, because I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your thoughts and opinions are, and I want you to try to defend them and explain them to me, and explain how, in your mind, that's 1 plus 1. In your mind, that's rational. That's common sense. So until then, that's all I got.